Gen 3 introduced a lot of new things to the Pokemon games. Not only did we get a massive increase to the Pokedex in general, we also got things like Natures, IVs, EVs, tons of new moves, and a significant increase to the abilities of the AI, which raises a question. Could a Gen 1 player who doesn't really know any of these things come to Gen 3 and still find their way through the game on minimum battles? That's the challenge that I posed to fellow PokeTuber, totally not the same guy as me, RBY Pokemon Challenges, where I gave him the challenge to bring his Gen 1 mythical Pokemon Mew, give it any starting moveset that he wanted, as long as it would have been a legal Gen 1 moveset, and bring it to this generation trying to beat the game on minimum battles, but with the caveat that he cannot change any of his moves to find out which gen is actually the best when it comes to Pokemon Emerald. So with that, I'll pass it to RBY Pokemon Challenges and he will introduce his strategy. So hello there, nice to meet you guys. I am RBY Pokemon Challenges, clearly the best of the Pokemon Challenges channels, and we're coming in today with Mew, a absolute god tier Pokemon. It's completely undersold in the games because it's basically the progenitor of every Pokemon, at least in the original lore, and it has 100 base in every single stat and can learn every TM move. So if any Pokemon can completely crush Pokemon Emerald, it has to be this one. Now, of course, today's challenge is to beat Pokemon Emerald on minimum battles, but I can start with any moveset that I want that would have been legal in Gen 1. I'm going to go a little bit different than I think people might expect. Rather than going for some like crazy coverage moveset with a ton of special moves, I'm going to make a physical attacking Mew because it's honestly the best that you could get in Gen 1. And it comes down to one simple fact. Mew in Gen 1 could learn Swords Dance via TM3. And once you give this Pokemon Swords Dance, give it a move like Body Slam and a move like Earthquake, then you really only need Soft Boiled on the moveset for healing and you're basically good to go. My question is, will that set also hold up here in Gen 3? Let's find out. Now, of course, our moveset doesn't come in until after the first battle, but once we get that set in, we have our moveset. Earthquake, Body Slam, Swords Dance, and Soft Boiled. And I think this is going to be enough to get us through at least decent parts of the game. I also debated throwing on Dragon Rage for the early game, but I think this is going to be good enough to get us through. Let's find out though. Another thing to note, obviously fateful encounters are a thing in this generation. I actually have the ability to set the fateful encounter flag to make our Mew be obedient, but let's see if that is enough to get us through as well without the disobedience of this Pokemon. It's, you know, of course, only Mew that they decided to completely pwn in this generation by making it disobedient unless you got it through an official event. Still, we can come into this Rival 1 fight. I'm going to set up a Swords Dance here with the OG and then just go for the Body Slam, completely destroying the Trico, and we're ready to move on in this one. The question is, are we going to ever run into an opponent who just resists all of our moves? Obviously, something like an Aerodactyl would be resistant to the normal type move and immune to ground type, but I don't think there's ever a situation where we're not going to be able to use one of our moves neutrally effective out of sight of a situation like that. But who knows, maybe there's a Pokemon I'm not thinking of. A Skarmory, I guess, could also be in that situation where we would have to only use Body Slam and it would be resisted. But even then, the Swords Dance might just get us through. So we're just going to have to test this and find out. Still, our goal today is pretty simple. We're just routing through the game, finding the best strategies that we can at every point, based on the fact that I am a Gen 1 player and have no idea what I'm actually doing here. I had to watch a whole bunch of the Roxanne Minimum Battle series just to figure out the first part of the game, and then after that I have no clue how to actually route, what moves are in any of the trainers' teams, what strategies actually work. So we're really going to be testing this. I'm going to be using some speed up here because this isn't a speed challenge. It's more of a can you beat the game on minimum battles with this setup challenge. And I heard from RSE that he's also going to put this one to GSC Pokemon Challenges, where he's going to have to come in with the Celebi on this one. Obviously Mew is like 500 times better than Celebi because it has an actual like god tier moveset, whereas Celebi is, you know, just stuck with the grass type and psychic type, so it can't pull off this epic Swords Dance strat to get through the entire game. I think we're going to stunt, and I think at the end we're going to realize that Mew is still the best Pokemon in the Pokemon franchise, period. End of story. Mewtwo, trash. Lugia, trash. Rayquaza, trash. this is the one that you actually want. The real travesty of runs with Mew is just the fact that Mew doesn't literally learn every move in the game, since it should be able to learn every move in the game. It's just clear and obvious from the lore, so the fact that we can't go like a belly drum spore strategy or something here is the actual travesty of the Pokemon games, especially when you consider that like a Smeargle could get that setup, which is ridiculous. Still, with a little bit of whinging out of the way, let's make our way into Roxanne's gym, where I'm just following the same route that I always see RSC Pokemon Challenges use, and I think we're going to completely stunt on this gym. Let's see how it goes. So Roxanne attempt number 1 right here. I'm going to lead off with a Swords Dance or 2 here, because I basically just want to completely destroy these Pokemon. We're getting some Rock Throw, Rock Tomb action, but that's perfectly fine. We'll just go Soft Boiled. And then once we get a miss, we'll just Earthquake and one-shot that first Geodude. That brings out the second Geodude. I'll just go Earthquake again, one-hit KOing it. And now we've made it to Nose Pass, where it cannot stand up against this Gen 1 Mew. No, we get the easy one-hit KO victory, completely stunting on this gym, and we're ready to move on to Brawly. I'm gonna go straight to Brawly because we should have an advantage there. Like, honestly, what is he going to do against this Pokemon? I think a whole lot of nothing. So let's just go ahead and get to that and see how it actually works out. But now, of course, we just have to come fight against this Team Aqua Grunt to save a Wingull. Let's see how he actually goes. He leads off with the Poochyena. We're at pretty much the same level as this Pokemon. I think we could just body slam it. Sure enough, we can, just getting the one-hit KO. So nice, easy victory there as we're ready to move on in this one. So of course, we're going to make our way down to Dewford and just see how this goes. We've got to go find good old Steven Stone, but I think before that, we can just come in and stunt on this gym. I see no reason why we can't just defeat Brawly right away. I just have to remember how to route here. I heard that there is a route where you can get through without fighting any trainers. I just don't know that route. So we might reset a couple times in here as I try to figure it out. And sure enough, we can find our way to Brawly. So let's just go ahead and fight him and hopefully get a super easy win. So here against Brawly, we're just going to lead off with our Swords Dances here as he just goes for a low kick that does nothing. Seismic Toss does a lot more, but we can set up all of these Swords Dances here. Now I'm just going to Earthquake on Machop and get the one-hit KO there. We get to level 14. Meditite comes out. We Earthquake, one-hit KOing, and that will bring out finally the Makuhita. We're just going to go for Earthquake and one shot right there. So it turns out that OG Mew is far too powerful for Brawly, and we can move on in the game. He's gonna actually turn on the lights here, you know, just trying some like Lieutenant Surge style, like mental psychological warfare, but it turns out not to matter. You can simply beat him nice and easy, and we're ready to move on in the game. And here we can talk to Steven Stone, and he's gonna give us access to Steel Wing, a move that we could always learn if we so desire. And now we'll simply back up out of here and make our way on in the game. So with that, we're ready to move on to Slateport, and let's just see how we do over here as we progress in the game. Again, I don't know where all of the trainers are, so I'm going to have to try my best to progress on minimum battles here, but I'm sure we will figure this out eventually. So we'll just quickly deliver the goods right here and then fight against these Team Aqua Grunts. But I don't think they know what's actually coming for them here with this Mew. I'm just going to go Earthquake and just one shot there against the Carvana. We get immediately after that round 2, but I mean, what's Zubat going to do against a Body Slam? Apparently nothing. So we get that one down in a single hit and back to Earthquake for this Carvana, completely stunting on this part of the game. Mew still way too powerful, at least up to this point, and Team Aqua's gonna have to run away and strategize for when we come back for them later. But for now, I think we're ready to just make our way up north to Mauville. We're gonna have to fight against the rival here, and we're gonna have to see how that goes, but I think we've got enough moves. Let's just find out. So here I will throw on a quick potion just to heal up, but let's get into this fight and see how it goes. And I think there might be an argument for going for a Silk Scarf here, just in case we go for Body Slam. Let's see. So of course, May, she leads off with this Wingull. I'm just going to go for all the Swords Dances here because we're not scared of anything from this Pokemon. And now we can just Body Slam it down. Easy victory. That brings out the Grovyle, which is of course just a grass type. I'll stick with the Body Slam here as it goes Pursuit. We can completely destroy that one. We get to level 20. We could learn Mega Punch. Nobody needs Mega Punch when you've got Body Slam though. And that brings out the Slugma, which simply gets Earthquaked and wrecked. So we get a super easy victory against May, and we're ready to move on to Wattson. Of course, before that, we've got Wally wanting to fight us with his Ralts, which honestly, we could just go Earthquake and destroy him and prove to him that he's not ready for gyms yet. If he can't even stand up to a single hit from this Mew, you shouldn't be here. So here we'll just fight the one required trainer in the gym, completely stunting on him because of the fact that we've got the Earthquake. And with that, we're ready to take on Wattson. Let's see if we get the victory. So Wattson attempt number 1, I'm just going to Earthquake on the first Voltorb. We get the one hit KO there. That brings out the Electrike. This is where I'll set up at least one Swords Dance. He howls. We can just Earthquake after that. Easy victory. That is going to bring out the Magneton, which is 4 times weak to Earthquake, so it never stood a chance. And finally, we've got the Manectric. We one-shot and get the easy win. Now, I'm just going to say right now that when it comes to these abilities, I know about the ability Levitate, obviously. I've heard of that before, and I find it a shame that Magneton does not get the Levitate ability, because it would just be the most obvious thing for that Pokemon to get. I mean, it's literally a levitating magnet. Like, you know, have you ever heard of maglev trains? We've got them here in Japan. When you take the so-called bullet trains that go all the way up and down the main island at super fast speeds. So there is simply no reason why a magnet Pokemon like Magneton would not be able to simply levitate and avoid damage that way from any of these ground type moves. But now with that done, we can move on in the game, and it's time to make our way off towards Flannery. Fortunately, there isn't too much to see up here. There aren't really a lot of trainers that you have to fight. So this is mostly just going to be about me learning my way through this route. And so many of the trainers up here are just spinners that you could pretty easily get past. So I don't think there are a lot that we actually have to fight here. In fact, it looks like right now we can mostly route around everything as we basically get to what is the Pokemon World equivalent of the real world place that's called Sakurajima, a volcanic area where people actually live in a situation like this, where some days there are crazy ash storms in Japan. I actually used to teach English to a guy from there, and it was very interesting to say the least to hear his stories. Now here we finally reach a hiker that we have to fight in order to progress. But fortunately, his team is super easy for us, so we can simply move on in the game from there. And once again, we're just trying to find a way through where we can avoid as many trainers as possible. So now we're just going to have to deal with some Team Aqua, Team Magma beef going on here. But now that we break up their little play date, I guess we can move on in the game. So now, of course, we can take the cable car up. Let's try to get through this whole Team Magma storyline here, as these guys are just like beefing right here with their Puchiinas. Good job. Let's go ahead and see if we can manage to move on through this section and how many battles there actually are. Like, it's just a massive cluster of Puchiinas here just battling like crazy. Now, of course, we stunt on all of the random Team Magma members, but now we have made it. It is time to see how we do against Archie. Now he's going to lead off with his Mightyena with Intimidate, so I'm going to go for the Swords Dance right here. He Sand Attacks, clearly because he knows what's coming for him, and then goes Bite. I'm going to hit the Earthquake and one-shot that Pokemon. Zubat comes out next. We Body Slam in one shot, and now Camera Up. I went for Body Slam. I meant to go Earthquake, but it doesn't matter either way. We just get the one-hit KO, and we can easily move on in the game from here. Now it looks like we basically then don't have to fight anything until we get to Lava Ridge. So we just have to see what route we take to get to Flannery here. I'm not super familiar with this gym, obviously, so I don't know exactly how to route to get through to the gym leader herself. Obviously has something to do with falling down into some of these holes, so we're just gonna have to learn the route as we go. Now, of course, if you're watching and you see a mistake, let me know, but my understanding is I have to fight this trainer and this second hiker right here, both of which are super easy with our Earthquake. We go straight through here. We take on this trainer with the Kecleon and then go through there, go straight up, go here, go through the center, and just like that, we can get to Flannery. So I think that's the correct route. Tell me if there are any skippable battles that I missed there in order to get to the gym leader. But for now, we're going to take her on and see how she goes. So Flannery attempt number 1. I'm going to Swords Dance here with my Mew first. She uses Overheat against me. I can simply go Soft Boiled to get HP back. We get Sunny Day from the Numel, but I'm just going to use this Pokemon as my opportunity to set up a whole bunch of Swords Dances. And now Takedown's really not doing that much. We can just go Earthquake and one-shot that Pokemon. I didn't recover Earthquake PP, oh no. Still, with all of the Swords Dances, I should just be able to Body Slam right here against Slugma. That brings out Camera Up. We can Body Slam and one-shot. Getting to the final Torkoal here. Body Slam is going to be a two-hitter. We get hit by Overheat, and she Hyper Potions here. But we paralyze the Torkoal. She's healing again, and we can simply Body Slam it down. Obviously, if we had had the Earthquake, we would just one-shot everything, but this is perfectly fine. You can get through Flannery just like that. And with the Heat Badge now available to us, we can move on in the game. But now with Flannery done, of course, I had to look up maps of how to route because I'm not used to this section just yet. But of course, we just want to get back to Daddy at this point so that we can completely stunt on him, telling him that, you know, in less than 24 hours, we become better than him in spite of the fact that he's apparently been a gym leader for his entire adult life. Clearly, we are a prodigy. Granted, I've been playing Pokemon probably longer than he was ever alive, given that this game wasn't even made back when I started playing these games. So it's pretty obvious that we're going to go in and stunt on him, but let's just see how easily we stunt on Daddy as we come all the way back here to Heidelberg. Now, the real question is, which route gives us less XP? So I'm going to have to test both ways at every point in order to see which route is better to stay on what we would consider minimum battles. I think either way is honestly fine. I'm simply going to use an elixir right here to get PP back, and it's time to fight against Daddy. Let's just see how he goes. So Norman attempt number 1 right here. I'm going to lead off with the Swords Dance, of course. He goes Teeter Dance to confuse me. Hopefully we don't hit ourselves in confusion too many times. At this point, I do think there's a value to going for Soft Boiled to keep our HP high. Now, of course, this Spinda is a little bit tedious, but we do manage to knock it out with an Earthquake at this point. Vigoroth is out next. I'm once again going to heal here as it goes Facade. I'm just going to get back to full health, set up one more Swords Dance here, and now go for the Earthquake to one-shot that Pokemon. Slacking comes out. We can Earthquake. It's going to be a two-hitter, and it uses Counter. Okay, that is a good strategy from Daddy right there. Let's try this one again. That was like our first legit reset in battle to our father. So kind of interesting to see. We can Body Slam there on that one. Since Vigoroth is going to be a one-hit KO anyway, we can simply do that. Now I'm going to Swords Dance here. See what the Slacking does. It goes Facade. That's perfectly fine because we can just Earthquake and then knock that Pokemon out the next turn. We could learn Metronome here. We will not learn Metronome. And that brings out the Linoon. We can just go Earthquake, and that gives us the victory on Daddy. It takes a couple attempts there, but just because of a timely counter, which, you know, good on him, but we can survive the Facade from the Slacking and then get the victory. And just like that, we get access to Surf, and we're ready to move on in the game. This Mew is just completely stunting. It turns out that, you know, a Gen 1 Mew is kind of OP, at least up to this point in Gen 3. So with that, I think we just do a little housekeeping and then make our way on in the game. Since we can now Surf outside of battle, we'll just slap that onto my Meryl and be ready to go. And the really good thing is that, at least as far as I can tell, we're still on minimum battles up to this point. So I think we're perfectly fine to progress in the game with this setup. But with that, we'll just make our way back to Mauville, and we're ready to move on in this challenge. We're gonna have to fight a couple trainers at this point, but they're pretty weak relative to us, so we can get super easy victories. In the normal minimum battle series, I guarantee RSE is just going to take on these Pokemon before he fights Wattson, but for us, we didn't need that experience. Mew is already just way too OP for this section of the game. But it seems like, generally speaking here, we can basically skip everything. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of trainer battles that are actually required. So here, we'll just make it to the Weather Institute and see if we can manage to get through here. Now, it seems like we have to fight one of these trainers to progress, and this trainer has only one Pokemon, whereas this trainer has two, so I chose this trainer to pass through. Here on the next floor, it looks like these two are required, so we're simply going to fight them. And then this guy appears to be a spinner, so we can just go right past him. And now I think we have to fight Shelly right here, but let's just see how she goes. I'm going to give a Swords Dance at the start of the fight. We get a Scary Face, which isn't a big deal. It just goes for focus energy after that. And we one-shot. Out comes the Mighty Ina. It goes Swagger, which is a pretty good strategy given that I do have the Swords Dance on. Still, we knock that one out and get through on the first attempt, so we can simply move on. But with that done, we're ready to move on in the game. And now I guess we have to fight against May. So let's just see how this goes. Fortunately, I healed. She goes Amnesia with her Slugma. That's perfectly fine. I'm just going to use this Pokemon to set up a lot on. Like, it can go Harden all at once, but I can just Earthquake and one-shot that Pokemon. Most teams would already have Dig at this point, so they'd still have a super effective move there. The Grovyle, I can go Body Slam, one-hit KOing, and that will bring out the Lombre. I'll just stick with the Body Slam right here, getting a very easy victory against May number 3, or technically May 4, I guess. But no matter how you look at it, pretty easy win, all said. But now with May going down, I think we make our way off towards Winona, and now it looks like this trainer right here is required. Still, we're going to try to stay away from the random trainers popping out of the trees here as we go into little tree fort town here. And there's something unseen blocking the gym. Of course, we've got to figure out how to get past that, which if I recall correctly, we have to get an item. We simply get access to the Devon scope, and now we're ready to go back to the gym where we can use this item in order to see what is blocking the gym. Of course, it's going to be a Kecleon. And with that, we're ready to enter the gym, and I've just got to figure out yet another puzzle, since that's how all of Hoenn seems to work is, you know, want to fight a gym, go through yet another puzzle. Now, I'm going to make sure that I have only one Pokemon so that I don't have to do like weird double battles unnecessarily, where it seems like we just have to fight a few of these trainers. We had to fight that guy over there on the left and those two trainers down there, but we can now make it to Winona. Let's just see if we can get the victory on the flying type gym leader. So she leads off with Swablu. I'm just going to use this opportunity to set up a whole bunch of Swords Dance and then go for the Body Slam to one-shot that Pokemon. Out comes the Tropius. We're going Body Slam and getting the one-hit KO. Pelipper comes out. We can Body Slam that one down. That brings out the Skarmory. This is the Pokemon that we have issues with, and I didn't recover PP coming into the fight, so we're going to have to take care of that so that we can actually knock everything out. Here, we do not like that this Pokemon uses Perish Song on us, though, because now I think we just lose because we probably don't manage to get through within few enough attempts, so we simply die. Swablu could be a problem if it goes Perish Song here. It does seem to be attacking randomly, though, so I do think we can manage to get through this. That brings us back to Tropius, and now back to the Pelipper that likes to use Protect from this way it looks, but we do manage to take it down. Skarmory, I'm going to go Body Slam. This looks to be a 2-hit KO. We get an accuracy drop and then a Steel Wing, but we do knock that one out, getting to level 36, and that brings out Altaria, which we simply one-shot. So just like that, we do manage to defeat the flying type gym leader, and we're ready to move on in the game. And just like that, we have 6 gym badges, all still on minimum battles, but definitely being aided by the Swords Dance in this so far. Now, of course, as we progress, our goal is to avoid any battles that we don't have to take. So I'm just trying to route around these trainers as best as I can. And it does seem like Gen 3 gives a lot of like these extra random little side routes to avoid trainers. Something that I wish would have been more of the case in Gen 1. So here we are at Mount Pyre, where we have to try to find our way through this whole section. Here we're getting up to the summit. I guess we have to fight against these trainers in order to progress. So I'll just use Soft Boiled periodically in order to recover HP and then knock these Pokemon out. The biggest question I have is there a way to deposit my HM users so that I don't have to use them in battle here? It doesn't seem like there's a way to talk to these two individually. And of course, I'm here with the team, so I'm going to swap my Pokemon around to at least have a Pokemon that doesn't do much by putting Abra out next to me. Let's see how this goes. Now, I think if you had a Pokemon that could learn Surf, you could definitely get here without having a second Pokemon. So that's something that RSE is going to have to consider in his minimum battle series. For now, I'm just not going to put Surf on here. I'm going to, I think, always just treat this as a double battle. But, you know, we'll discuss it with RSE and figure it out from there. So my game plan is basically to try to get my second Pokemon knocked out. So I'll use Earthquake here, which should knock out the Abra and knock out everything else. Then I'll just throw out a Pokemon like cast form, I guess, and try to do the same thing with Earthquake here. We don't quite knock the cast form out though. Let's try this again. Maybe Zigzagoon is the way to go there. So here, Earthquake will just wreck everything. I'll send out Zigzagoon next to me. Since it's at a super low level, it just gets wrecked. Perfectly fine. Meryl can go out. We'll go for the Earthquake again right here, destroying all of those Pokemon. And then I'll send out the Halo here. My hope is that they knock out Talo. Okay, Talo does get to the point of hitting itself in confusion. That results in me sending out the cast form. I'm just going to knock this Pokemon out. Of course, it has to freeze the Zubat. But we'll knock out the cast form. Now it's just a one-on-one. That's what I wanted to see. And we can get the victory there and move on. So I think that's going to be the way to go, is to just knock out my own like second Pokemon. I probably could have just come with Meryl, used Earthquake turn 1 and knocked that Pokemon out. Otherwise, target my partner until it goes down so that I can then try to get through the rest of the opponents in front of me. Still, with that done, we can now move on in the game. So let's just see how we actually do here. So now we can get into this Team Magma section right here, where I think we're pretty much just going to stunt on everything. But let's see how this section actually turns out. Now, I'm pretty sure that some of these at least are skippable. We're just going to have to time things out the right way. The question is just how to route. So I'm going to have to look at a guide because I've never done this section of the game before. Now, it looks like most of these Team Magma members are pretty much a joke, but here we do get to Tabitha. So let's see how this goes. Here against the Numel, we can simply set up a Swords Dance first, I think. And then let's go Earthquake on that Pokemon, getting a one-hit KO. Zubat comes out, we just one-shot it with a Body Slam. Mightyena comes out, we can Earthquake, one-hit KOing it. And that brings out Camerupt, which never stood a chance. So we easily get through and get a move on in the game, where I believe we just have to take on Maxie and then we are done with this section. So let's just see how this works out. So here we wake up a Groudon and get a grouchy Team Magma leader accusing us of messing something up somehow. And here we get confused an infinite number of turns and we lose. So I have to refight Tabitha, but this is fine. Everything's fine. We're going to get the victory on the next attempt, I'm sure. As long as we don't get bad luck with confusion, we should actually get the victory pretty easily here. But let's just see if we can get that to work. So once again, I will use the Swords Dance here and then go for Earthquake. Looks like a two-hitter on this Pokemon, and then we can simply Body Slam from there. Crobat comes out and is getting a lot of flinches, and unfortunately we hit ourselves repeatedly in confusion, so we lose. Let's try this one again. The Swagger is a bit of a problem here because it does cause us to knock ourselves out on a lot of attempts. So I'm going to Body Slam to paralyze the Mightyena because it keeps going for the Scary Face on me. And once we get that, I think we can just Body Slam that Pokemon down. Now we can Body Slam down the Crobat, getting the victory there. Camerupt comes out, we go Earthquake, one-hit KOing that Pokemon. And there we finally do manage to get through and we can move on in the game. So with that, it looks like we're back to Slateport here, where we just have to come see what's going on. Of course, just in time for Team Aqua to steal a submarine. So here we're now going to have to storm another one of these teams' bases. So I'm just going to have to figure out the route through this section. Now it looks like we just have to fight against these Team Aqua grunts. We can skip like this spinner guy or the guy when we first came in, but we'll just have to fight these ones so we can move on. Our goal remaining to be to fight as few trainers as possible as we go through this. We level up, we could learn Psychic here at level 40, but I think that's completely unnecessary and we can move on in the game. Here it seems we've found the submarine at least. And here we've got Team Aqua admin Matt. So I'm just going to go for Swords Dance here. He goes Scary Face. Seems like a standard strat for Mightyena at this point. We get Golbat out next. It goes Bite, but we one-shot with the Body Slam. And just like that, we do get through this section, but we're going to have to see how to progress from here. Still, at this point, we at least have gained quite a few levels on minimum battles. The question is just how to route to hopefully avoid as many trainers as possible. These two might be required, so in that case, I may just fight one of of them and see if I can route past the others. That one does seem to be rotating though, so it might just be this trader that's actually required. Still, with that trader out of the way, it looks like we can get to Moss Deep, and we have another gym in front of us, the one that belongs to Tate and Liza. So here we just have to figure out how to route through the gym. Now, until I find my way to the gym leaders, I'm going to deposit all of my Pokemon other than Mew and then make my way into the gym proper. Let's just see how this goes. The main point of this, of course, is to avoid getting experience on another Pokemon and be able to just focus on each of these opponents one by one, at least for now. And now that I've made it to the gym leaders, this is where I will withdraw a second Pokemon. I'm just going to take this Abra and let's go and see if we can manage to win against Tate and Liza. So now with my Abra, let's see if we can manage to win against Tate and Liza. Of course, we get Claydol and the Xatu out first. I'm just going to go for the Swords Dance here. We get hit by Earthquake. It doesn't do that much. I'm just going to Swords Dance again here. We get confused and we get hit by another Earthquake. Here, I think we want to Body Slam the Claydol. We do not take it down though. And just like that, we are getting wrecked. Hold up just a second. Let's see if we can get a better range here. So here, I'm setting up 2 Swords Dances and then I'm going to Body Slam down the Xatu. I'm going to have to heal right here with the Soft Boileds as we're taking a lot of damage from the Earthquake and Solrock is taking in Sunlight. So we're getting a lot of damage on us here. Still, we are out healing it looks like. So I'm going to set up my last Swords Dance right here. We get a crit on us and then we get knocked out by back-to-back crits. Are you kidding me? Oh, that is ridiculous. Clearly, they're cheesing here. At this point, we're going to have to heal up with Soft Boiled in order to survive. Again, I do believe we're out healing the damage that we're being given, provided we don't get critical hits like that. Here we finally get Xatu to go for Calm Mind, which is going to open an opportunity for us to knock that Pokemon out. We'll now go for the Soft Boiled again here. And then my plan is to Body Slam the Claydol. We get it paralyzed. It's fully paralyzed, so it can't move this turn. I'm going to just simply knock it out here. Okay, we get a Hyper Potion, but that's perfectly fine. I still think we can take that Pokemon down. Unfortunately, the Solar Beam ends me. We're going to have to try this again. Okay, this time I managed to get 3 setups with the Swords Dance. I'm going to now Body Slam the Claydol, taking that Pokemon down. Xatu uses Psychic and knocks me out, so we lose. So I guess when Xatu is just going for Calm Mind, we can simply knock that Pokemon out. We still take the Earthquake here, but I'm going to Soft Boiled. We get Earthquake. We know that the Solrock goes for Sunny Day. So I'm going to set up the last Swords Dance right here. Earthquake crits, and that's already the end of us right there because Sunny Day's up. Solar Beam is going to hit immediately. And of course, our big problem here is the fact that we can't use Earthquake to hit both Pokemon. If we could, I think we would be perfectly fine to get through here. But turns out that Tate and Liza are going to be a nightmare, especially when we're trying to do this as effectively a solo challenge. So here I'm going to still take this opportunity to knock out Xatu, hope and pray that we survive against Claydol. We just barely do. So we get Earthquaked here, we get Flamethrower from Solrock, but we're just going to sit here and heal and hope to out heal the damage, hoping that they don't go for any critical hit moves here. Now I'm going to knock out Claydol. We get the 1-hitter there, perfectly fine. Now let's just see how we do against Lunatone here. It's going to be a 2-hitter, but we get the Paralysis, and then we get Hypnosis. Oh no. So if we don't wake up, we're just getting completely wrecked there. We're going to have to try this yet again. The Hypnosis is terrible. And once again, if everything here wasn't levitating, I think we'd be perfectly fine. The entire issue here seems to be critical hits and the fact that we don't have a move that can hit both Pokemon at the same time. So we might more be in a situation where we're just really hoping for some like paralysis or something to allow us to get through these Pokemon. So I've essentially arrived at the idea that we have to knock out Claydol as quickly as possible and then try to take out the Xatu before it can set up too many Calm Minds. Then here, I think we really want to knock out Lunatone since it knows Hypnosis and I really don't want to be put to sleep. We get Lunatone to go Calm Mind this time, so we can knock that one out. We're down to just 1 Pokemon in front of us as we level up here. We survived the Solar Beam from Solrock. We can now go for these Soft Boileds here. which of course we take a critical hit after that, so we're gonna have to keep healing here for a minute. But the sunlight ultimately fades. Solrock has to set up another sunny day here. We can body slam this Pokemon, doing significant damage. They're going to use the Citrus Berry, and now I can body slam again. And finally, it's taken a ton of attempts. The overlay crashed once. I decided to step away, eat dinner, spend time with the family, and come back. But it is ultimately possible to beat Tate and Liza on minimum battles with this Mew, just allowing a super weak Abra to be my side Pokemon that gets just destroyed in a single hit. So with that done, it is time to go stunt on Team Magma here, and I don't think they actually stand a chance against us. If we have a Mew that can effectively beat a double battle, I'm pretty sure it can take them on one by one, but let's just see how this actually works out. So here we're just going to fight the fewest number of Team Magma members that we can so that we don't gain too much experience unnecessarily. And hopefully this will prove to be enough to allow us to get the easy victories here. So here we are ready to join in with good old Steven Stone here in order to take on the Team Magma leader Maxie here, where I think my best play is just to go Earthquake on everything and deal as much damage as possible. We can basically take out the camera up really easily this way. So now we have a bunch of bats out in front of us. I'm just going to use a whole bunch of Swords Dances here and now start going for the body slams. We can one-shot the Crobat here, and now we can just go back to Earthquake on the final Camerupt. And together with Steven, we do manage to get the victory here. And with that, we're ready to move on in the game. We can get access to Dive, and now we can actually go after Team Aqua. We're basically going to see them do their whole thing with Kyogre, and I'm sure all of this is perfectly fine. And of course, we can find the submarine and just go back up above ground so that we can come to fight against, hopefully, all of these Team Aqua grunts pretty easily. Apparently, there are a bunch of puzzles that we have to do here, which are always my favorite part of the Pokemon games, clearly. But hopefully, we can just find our way through pretty easily and ultimately get through this section. So once again, in here, we will avoid fighting any of these grunts that we don't have to. Though admittedly, I don't know the route through here, so I'm going to have to look it up. So it looks like we can at least get here without fighting anything. And now we even get to pick up the Earthquake TM. And now we can see a nice Kyogre here. We didn't even have to fight the lesser grunts, etc. We only have to take on the final Archie fight, it looks like. So let's just get this out of the way. Now, of course, he leads off with his Mightyena. I'm just going to use Swords Dance here to raise my attack stat. It goes Swagger against me. I hit myself in confusion once, but now I can hit the Earthquake to knock that Pokemon out. That's going to bring out the Crobat. We hit the Body Slam, one hit KOing there. And now we get Sharpedo. Earthquake will just one-shot that one as well, giving us the victory nice and easy. Still, we can't stop him from awakening Kyogre, but hey, you know, this is all fine. Everything's fine. Now we're just going to listen to these guys beef over Kyogre or Groudon. Finally, they just need to both admit that they're both wrong. And now apparently, you know, once again, it falls to like a 10-year-old to come in and save these guys from their own dumb decisions. Now here we can watch the epic showdown of Kyogre and Groudon. You know, just come over here and just stand right next to these two beefing entities here. We'll come catch up with Steven Stone and see what he has to say about this whole thing. And apparently, once again, all the adults in the room are just like, yeah, kid, go out there and be somebody. Go solve our problems for us. So we'll get the quest to awaken Rayquaza, and we're going to have to figure out how to get the Sky Pillar from here, apparently, so that we can go and take care of this whole problem. But it's good to know that capitalism still lives on in the middle of the apocalypse. The Pokemart is still open for business, apparently, and now we just have to go set their nonsense straight. The bigger thing here is just making sure that we don't run into any unnecessary optional battles, so we're just going to have to see how that goes for us. I'm pretty sure that most of these swimmers can be dodged with the right timing. It's just going to take a little bit of luck to get it to go. So, of course, they just send a kid up to go find an ancient legendary Pokemon to solve this whole situation, which does seem a little bit sus here. Still, we make our way to the top. There is the Rayquaza. So we'll just go back now and watch the epic ending of this little beef that's going on here. Obviously, obviously the box legendary comes in to solve this entire issue and clear up the weather. So everybody's super happy now. So now we just have to come into our final gym and see if we can find a way through it, hopefully without having to fight any more optional trainers. And sure enough, we can solve the puzzle, and it's time to take on Juan. Don Juan himself. Let's see how he likes our Gen 1 Mew. So of course he's going to lead off with the love disc, and I didn't even heal coming into this fight, so let me just do a soft boiled right there. We get hit by the water pulse, which isn't great, and apparently our Mew has decided to just hit itself in confusion every single turn. Now we can set up some Swords Dance, but we are going to have to be very careful because we might knock ourselves out at this point. We snap out of confusion just in time so that we can start healing up with soft boiled though, and basically just finish our setup, and we knock ourselves out in confusion on the first attempt. But let's try this one again. Obviously water pulse is a really good strategy against a Swords Dance user. Just legitimately anything that causes you to hit yourself in confusion is going to be pretty strong here against us. So there's probably a strong argument for trying to knock out love disc as quickly as possible. The bigger issue though is just that we're losing all of the flips to determine whether we hit ourselves in confusion or not. Still, let's just see what kind of damage we do to this Pokemon if we actually attack. Body Slam paralyzes it right there. I'll take this opportunity to heal as he does the same. I'll go for a single Swords Dance here. We get a Sweet Kiss, but if we can land a hit here, we will knock this Pokemon out. Sure enough, we do. That brings out the Crawdaunt, and at least this Pokemon probably isn't going to confuse me. We get taunted, but we'll just go for Earthquake here and knock that Pokemon out. That brings out the Whiskash. I'm simply going to do another Swords Dance right here. We get Amnesia. That's perfect. We can just Earthquake this Pokemon, getting an easy one-hit KO. We get to level 46 as we get the Celio out. We can just go for Earthquake here. One-hit KO on that one as well. Kingdra, Earthquake. It's a one-shot, and just like that, we defeat Juan. So as soon as we actually get past Love Disc and aren't confused and hitting ourselves every single turn, it's not actually that hard to get through that gym. And just like that, we have completed all the badges, so we're ready to move on in this one. And with that, we just need to learn Waterfall here, and we should be able to progress in the game. So let's just see if this works out. Here, of course, Wally's going to come in. He's going to be ready to go to the league, or so he claims. He leads off with his Altaria right here. Let's just go for some Swords Dance on this Pokemon. He's Dragon Dancing, so we've got similar ideas. But once we get everything set up, I accidentally misclick and use one too many Swords Dances there, but we can just one-shot that Pokemon. That brings out the Delcatty here. We can just go Earthquake on that one. Magneton also can get Earthquaked super easily. Rosalia will just go for the Body Slam. And here against the Gardevoir, let's just give it an Earthquake, getting an easy victory. We completely stunt on Wally. And now I guess we just have to stunt on other traders here on the victory road and hopefully reach the point of getting to the league without too much difficulty. Now, of course, my entire goal is to avoid all the traders that I can, but I'm not exactly sure about the routes here just yet. So if I do take on something that is technically not required, I will leave that to GSC Pokemon Challenges to figure out at some point in the future. Still, I'm just gonna route through here as carefully as I can and hopefully not make any major mistakes. It looks like these two traders are going to be required, so I'm going to take them on one by one so that I can just use my Mew in the battles. And when I see this trainer using Lantern, I already know they're terrible because we all know how bad Lantern is in full game solo runs. But with that, we're ready to progress. Hopefully soon we'll be out of traders to actually have to fight. But sure enough, we finally make it to the end. So we'll just buy some items, get our heal on, and it's time to go into the league. And as far as I can tell, at least, I don't think I've taken any optional battles in this entire run. So far, it's only been Tate and Liza that were a major wall to this view. Everything else has been more just lost time from me not knowing how to route through the game. So I feel like this Mew's been pretty OP so far. The question is, does it maintain that level of power as it gets into the league? Let's find out. I'm simply going to save as I come in, and maybe we can get the victory, maybe we can't. Let's just test it and see. Of course, first we've got Sydney. We're just going to go for these swords dances here. We get a crunch from this Mightyena. It's using its strongest move by far. Earthquake does one-shot there. That brings out the Shiftery. Body Slam gets the one-hit KO. Cacturn is out next. We Body Slam and one-shot. Crawdont, we Earthquake and one-shot. Absol, we Earthquake and one-shot. So we managed to get through Sydney, even though he was the Dark-type member of the league, on the first attempt with no issues. It's just good enough to get the job done. So with that, it's on to the next member. So we've got Phoebe and her ghost types coming out now. I think the strategy is pretty simple. I'm going to lead off with these swords dances here. We get Cursed, which is obviously not great, but now we can Earthquake this Dusclops down. Bandit comes out. We can go for the Earthquake there as well. We get affected by Curse even on turns where we knock opponents out, which is different from Gen 2. And that could be the issue here. We're going to have to try to reset on this one because we definitely need to take out this Dusclops before we get cursed if possible. Here it goes Protect and Protect again, and here we don't manage to one-shot. Still, we do take it down the next turn after that, so I'm just going to set up another Swords Dance right here against Bandit, but there it used Grudge against me and messed up my PP. Let's try this again. So this might be a situation to go for 2 Swords Dances and then Earthquake on Dusclops. We get to Bandit and we one-shot that Pokemon. Another Bandit comes out, also getting completely destroyed. Another Dusclops, and we've run out of PP in Earthquake due to pressure. Just a second, we may need to throw on a Lepa Berry here so that if we run out of PP in our Earthquake, we can simply use that move again. Let's try this. So same strategy as before. I'm going to set up 2 Swords Dances here. I think that's enough for us to sweep, and then we should be able to Earthquake this Pokemon. When it curses, I know I'm getting wrecked, so I'm just going to have to give up there. But I think we need 2 Swords Dances to get this to work. Here the Protect fails. Now Protect works, but we can knock it out the next turn. We're going to knock out this Bandit. We're going to knock out this Bandit. Oh, and I didn't have the Lepa Berry on that time. Never mind. Turns out I did not heal with the Lepa Berry. So let's try this one again. Now, we're also not coming in with full PP in Earthquake, which is part of the issue here. And of course, if we get confused and hit ourselves every turn, we will lose that way as well. Here we snap out of confusion and we can one-shot there against Dusclops. We will destroy the first Bandit, destroy the second Bandit. We Earthquake the Dusclops. We're out of PP in Earthquake, but we have the Lepa Berry, so we simply knock out the Sableye after that. So it is a Lepa Berry spot. Of course, I could have healed and come in on full PP as well, but this works perfectly fine, and we're ready to move on in this challenge. So that's going to bring us to Glacia and the Ice types. So let's see how this goes. Obviously, if I get frozen, I'm probably getting wrecked. We're going to get hit by hail here. Still, I'm just going to set up Swords Dances and hope not to get paralyzed by this Body Slam spam. We do get paralyzed, unfortunately, but I think that's fine. I'm just going to start healing here. Let's get back to basically full health, and then we can start attacking and hopefully knock out that Celio. Sure enough, we do. That brings out Glalie. It goes Crunch, dealing massive damage, so we're getting wrecked right here. We get Hail after that, but we knock that Pokemon out. Next, Celio comes out. I'm going to have to go back to Soft Boiled here as Blizzard does massive damage and we can't move, so we get wrecked. Let's try this one again. So this time I'm going to set up 1 Swords Dance. Let's see if that allows me to KO with Earthquake. It does. Now, can we get through the Glalie here? No, we cannot. We would need 1 more Swords Dance to get through this Pokemon reliably. Sure enough, though, as I expected, there's healing here, so we can simply set up another Swords Dance for free, then get the KO. We can KO the next Glalie. That brings out another Celio, which we can just wreck, and Walrein comes out. We hit the Earthquake. It hits Surf. It heals with a Citrus Berry, but we just knock it out the next turn. So just like that, we managed to get through Glacia there. So at this point, I do think we just recover PP. I also think this PP up that I have randomly here should probably be thrown into Earthquake just to give a little more PP there. And let's see how we do on this next battle. It is now time for Dragons, so let's take on Drake and see how this goes. Now, of course, if this guy in front of me is Drake, I'm basically Kendrick Lamar right here because we know that I'm going to completely stunt on him. Earthquake there is enough to take down the Shelgon. We grow to level 54. Flygon is out. It knows Levitate, of course. So we're going to have to sit here and body slam this one. Still, we take it down. That brings out Salamence, which is, of course, flying, and we get crunched down. We're going to have to try this one again. I think this is a spot where we need all of the Swords Dances if we can. We get 2 Swords Dances as this one is protecting itself, and now we might be just one-shotting here. Let's see on the Flygon. Not quite. We would need 1 more Swords Dance here, so I'm going to set it up here as he heals, and then body slam again. That brings out Salamence. Body slam will not get the one-hit KO here because of Intimidate, but that's perfectly fine. I'll just take it down the next turn. Altaria comes out. We can just stick with the body slam there. We don't quite get the one-hitter, but it goes Dragon Dance. That's going to allow me to set up the last Swords Dance and knock this Pokemon out, and that brings out Kingdra. We outspeed, and we one-shot, so we managed to get through. Like I said, if that's Drake, I'm K-Dot. Clearly, we're on completely different levels. Just take the L, Drake. Just take the L. So with that, I believe we're ready to go take on Wallace. Let's see how he goes. So Wallace time, of course, he leads off with the Wailord here. I'm going to set up some Swords Dance. We get hit by Blizzard. It does pretty significant damage, but as long as I don't get crit here, I think I can out-heal the damage. And of course, we don't want to get frozen here. Still, Water Spout doesn't do that much. I'm going to set up my final Swords Dance here, and then we get frozen solid. Are you kidding me? Let's try this one again. Clearly, Wallace is here cheesing. This time we get Rain Dance on us. Wait just a second. I'm going to see what the Earthquake does because Water Spout does a lot of damage here, but we do manage to knock that Pokemon out. Okay. That brings out the Tentacruel. I can go for the Earthquake right here, getting a one-hit KO. Now we've got the Ludicolo. I'm going to go Swords Dance as it double teams and then hope that the Body Slam one-shots. It does. So we get through that Pokemon. Now we get the Whiscash here. We can one-shot that one. We get to level 56 as Gyarados comes out. It has Intimidate. I'm going to set up Swords Dance again. It goes Dragon Dance. That's fine. We'll just go for the Body Slam right here, one-shotting that Pokemon. And Milotic comes out, gets Body Slammed and wrecked. So just like that, we beat the entire league with our Mew from Gen 1. No moveset changes. And quite frankly, the hardest battle in the entire game was the Tate and Liza fight. That one was brutally hard because of the fact that you're effectively just putting out one Pokemon for cannon fodder there. But that's what I think you actually have to do if you're doing a solo challenge. You have to put a second Pokemon out there to be that cannon fodder and just let it go down, you know, or even better yet, use something like Earthquake or Surf or something to knock it out by yourself so that you can take on the game with only your main Pokemon actually affecting battles, at least in any meaningful way. And what this does prove, if nothing else, is that minimum battles is absolutely possible in Pokemon Emerald. It's not going to be pretty. There aren't going to be a lot of Pokemon that get it done because most Pokemon aren't going to be running this sort of god tier moveset for an itemless solo challenge. But I guarantee there are going to be Pokemon that are better than this Mew for this setup overall. We're going to get things that have a good stab typing in the right spots. And I mean, if I had been changing moves around in order to actually match up to my opponents, I get the feeling that we could have made this one a lot better. But like I said, RSE told me to bring my best Gen 1 moveset, so I did. And in the end, it proves to be enough to beat the entire game. So with that, I just want to give a massive thank you to everybody. I will do the shoutouts for RSE Pokemon Challenges, thanking Lavender Regards, of course, for doubling up on Patreon and YouTube in the Steven Stone Champion tier. We've got Warsword as well in the Hoenn Champion tier. And now we're going to get into all of our other folks who are supporting here on the channel. It helps massively for a little channel like RSE Pokemon Challenges. You know, when you're established like RBY Pokemon Challenges, you can be like, you know, hey, you know, I know I'm going to get the views, but here on RSE, we're still building up. We're still doing our best. RSE has been consulting with me and GSC Pokemon Challenges behind the scenes. We've been teaching him how to make content, how to edit, how to prepare his YouTube channel, how to make thumbnails, how to interact with all of you fine people who watch these videos all the way to the end. end each and every time. And I just want to say, like, I talk a lot of trash on RSE Pokemon Challenges, but he does have drive. He is putting in the work. He is trying to become the best Pokemon Challenge channel on YouTube. So hopefully he gets there someday. And hopefully you guys stick around for what is a really fun ride as we get there. And just to answer the big question that I know everybody's asking themselves right now, the elephant in the room, no, I am not RSE Pokemon Challenges. I am RBY Pokemon Challenges. Look at the background here. Look at the background. That is RBY. That is not RSE. So while I'll give some props to RSE at the end of this one, I hope that you'll come over and check out RBY Pokemon Challenges, where we're doing tons of crazy stuff over there, like ultra minimum battles, beating the game with only 13 battles in the entire game of Pokemon Red and Blue, where I promise you this Mew stunts on that one as well. Anyway, that does it for this one. We'll see you guys in the next one. Later.